Urban renewal or community development in any city is a continuing challenge of far-reaching proportions, in addition to the tremendous financial considerations involved. But the city of Buffalo should have a head start on most New York communities, since this city's Ellicott district is the site of the first community in the entire state to be chosen for official redevelopment. That designation, New York State UR number 1, was made in 1950, and that promise is still largely unfulfilled for the residents of the Ellicott district. Of course, blight is not restricted to the Ellicott district, nor are the effects restricted to the residents of the Ellicott district. We are all affected by blight, directly or indirectly, in many ways, some of which we hope to illustrate today. One planned phase of the Ellicott Urban Renewal Project that was partially fulfilled was the Town Garden Apartments located between William and Clinton Streets. One of those actively involved was former City Court Judge, City Councilman, and Real Estate Director Wilbur Trammell. Mr. Trammell, you were instrumental in the development and building of Town Gardens. Would you describe your role, please, in that development?
Well, initially the Town Gardens didn't have the methods of financing until the government passed a law which allowed nonprofit groups to get 100% mortgage money, so to speak. And we put together the 10 churches, including a Catholic member, that participated in forming a nonprofit Ellicott Community Development Corporation, which is now Town Gardens. And in addition to that, we worked very closely with the ministers, the city, and the developers who had been selected by the city prior to that time, and with the federal government in procuring the mortgage and seeing that the project was started in construction and it was completed.
All right, now this project was completed, but was this the total planning for this district as far as urban renewal goes?
No, as you know, in every urban renewal program, there's a master reuse plan to determine where the land is to be allocated for what purposes. And after 2,200 families were removed from here, it was planned for a replacement of 1,200 housing units, of which I understand only 580 have been constructed.
What were some of the other programs or plans for this area that you know of that were not completed?
Well, the general area it was understood to undergo a complete revitalization. The next development phase for the urban renewal program was scheduled to be in the Maston Park area. That was canceled because of great resistance by the people and others. And we attempted then to have it shifted to the north side of the William Street area to complete the process which was begun here. Unfortunately, the emphasis from housing shifted to the central business district and into the waterfront. And this depleted the efforts and the funds for the completion of the Ellicott project, in my opinion, that is.
Now, as far as the city's urban renewal planning, you say this was basically a private citizen project. How much of the city's promises or plans are involved in this, and plans that were not developed, as you say, as a part of a priority plan?
Well, first of all, it was only private in the sense of the financing and the device used to provide the financing, but it was a city project from the beginning. This, as you know, the master plan was filed in 1950. It's calling for the demolition of these houses and the reconstruction of houses within a short time, which was not done. The city's function has to do with determining what places are to be demolished and relocated and reconstructed. And in that regard, the failure would be that of the city and the federal government, plus the state, quite frankly, in terms of its lack of support in terms of housing funds.
In his 1967 State of the Union message, then-President Lyndon Johnson said, and we quote, "Federal assistance is essential, but it is not enough, for only a total working partnership among federal, state, and local governments can succeed. The test of that partnership will concern each public citizen, each public organization, and each private responsible citizen," end quote. Obviously, there is room for every citizen in that partnership. as well as a need for every degree of constructive effort if results are to be achieved. The slides and film used on this program, more graphically than any rhetoric we might choose to use, illustrate what the Urban Renewal program in Buffalo is all about. Regardless of the side of town, in the vernacular of the streets, ain't nothing happening. Councilman George Arthur of the Ellicott District has long championed the cause for completion of the Urban Renewal project. Councilman Arthur, what is your opinion of the urban renewal development of the Ellicott District and the lack of that promise fulfillment?
Well, first of all, I think that urban renewal should be called urban removal, because I think urban renewal, as far as the city of Buffalo is concerned, has been a failure. The city does not have a commitment to complete the urban renewal problem that it has started, and I think it has been a complete failure. And that it's a matter that housing, low-income housing, low and moderate-income housing is not one of the priorities of the city of Buffalo.
What about the families that were displaced by this move? What were the numbers that were removed and the numbers that are available to live in housing units now?
The number of families that were removed, I don't recall at this time, but it was a great many. And the housing to provide for them to relocate back in has not been provided. They were given at that particular time the promise that if they moved out, they would have the opportunity of moving back. Well, you can't move back into vacant land like we're standing on now. And so actually the city has broken that promise, have not honored that commitment to them. And at the rate it's going now, I don't see them ever honoring or completing that commitment.
Are there any plans for development of any housing now in this district?
If you talk to some of the city fathers, they would tell you that, yes, there are plans. But in actuality and reality, no, there are no plans. They use it as a subterfuge and part of the housing assistance plan. And each year they say one of our goals is to complete the Ellicott Urban Renewal development. But you can't complete it if you don't have any architects, developers, or, provide the money and the wherewithal for it. So as a result of which, they keep using it in an effort to gain and to recapture federal funds, but with no intentions whatsoever of completing the project.
BDF embarked on this effort primarily because of the obvious need, and secondly, because we were disturbed and perplexed about an attempt to take apart a relevant community organization, Community Planning and Assistance Corporation, by implying that it was receiving too much money to perform its task, which in itself might constitute a miracle. The officials charged with our community's redevelopment fate appear totally preoccupied with maintaining their own sense of priorities. Their actions make them appear to think, so what if our housing stock is at an all-time low? In the inner city, substandard is the name of the game. So what if businesses and industries run from us like the plague? We'll continue to accept neat, cute phrases like economic downturn and declining tax base to explain our community's lack of vibrancy. By now, it should be obvious. If we look dead, feel dead, act dead, and are constantly funeralizing ourselves, that is how we will be perceived by business, industry, our citizens, and everyone else. The entire blame for our city's decline does not rest with one city agency, nor can it be laid on a single official. If Buffalo's urban renewal efforts have failed, we, its citizens, as described by President Johnson in his Partnership for Change, have also failed. We have accepted do-nothingness for progress. We have accepted unworkable for viability. In short, we too have fiddled while Buffalo burns. We have not demanded accountability. We have not rejected mediocrity. We have not agitated for change. Even organizations like BDF have ignored the real problem, trying to work around it. Until the incident with CPAC, we grimaced, but it wasn't in anger. Instead, we shrugged in acquiescence to the hopelessness of you can't fight City Hall. But now is the time to take our heads out of the sand and admit that only a committed, concerted effort will save what used to be the Queen City from ultimately becoming a ghost town. It's not easy, but it can be accomplished. Urban renewal, as such, has rarely proven to be what the Congress of this country had in mind originally, but where it is effective, it occurs because of total community participation and sensitive leadership by business and government. Mr. Frank Merriweather of the Buffalo Criterion has been in business in the Ellicott district for over 52 years. We asked him what had been the effect of the unstable housing and redevelopment situation in the community.
Well, Ron, I'll tell you about the business situation in the inner city. It really began with the displacement in 1927 when they cut William Street through, and one of the biggest black hotels, the Manhattan Hotel, which was owned by Tip Miller, who also owned the first black cab company in Buffalo, was the My Cab Company. That was the beginning of the displacement. And then later, with the Ellicott district redevelopment, that displaced a lot of businesses. We had counted 104 businesses and professional and men and rooming houses, hotels, and out of that I would estimate there was at least about 600 to 700 employees who were hired by their own race displaced for the 26 blocks of the Ellicott district redevelopment. And a lot of them had 8, 10, 12 employees, say like Sherman Walker, the Hotel Vendome, the Urban League was in there with a staff, Judge Burrell, Dr. Murphy, Bob Baker's drugstore, Dr. Holland, Russell Holland. There was a great displacement there. And I don't think that we've actually been able to recover from it, because now with the Town Garden Plaza, and the help required for the phase 1 and 2, I don't think that we've replaced 600 or 700 employees, you see. And so, to me, everywhere the minority people go, their businesses suffer vandalism to a greater degree, break-ins, the lack of insurance, and it's a pretty uphill fight for them to just break even. And in the Cold Springs area, I can hardly see where they can bring that back, where they had a real viable businessmen's association. Genesee had a viable businessmen's association. The William Street businessmen who elected the first black as a president during the war in the person of the meat packer. His name slips my memory just now. But the way that the trend is going with supermarkets and big business coming in, and especially say in the Cold Springs and Fillmore area, you have Sears there, and with nice parking facilities. You have Twin Fair with up-to-date parking facilities, and unless you get to real emergency business, you can hardly make it.
Of the businesses that were here at the start of the Ellicott redevelopment project, what percentage of the businesses are still here?
Well, I don't think there are too many. I imagine there might be, say, 15 or 20.
Now, what do you see in closing for the future for the business area and the residential area of the Ellicott district?
Well, I can see that it's going to, unless they get some federal help, it's still going to deteriorate.
Simply stated, the following ingredients were present to some extent in every successful effort at community redevelopment: a strong sense of community direction and goals, along with wide citizen understanding and involvement in their realization. Such direction must be based on sound knowledge of the city's nature and realistic analysis of its deficiencies and potentials. Broad-based programs and programs delineating these goals within reasonable limits. A moratorium on politics in the usual partisan sense. Recognition of the need to utilize all resources of public and private effort, including those of eminent domain, to accomplish these goals. An organization composed of the movers, the power structure, limited in size and representing business leaders and decision makers in the community who are personally dedicated to maintaining and restoring the health and vitality of their community. These persons must clearly recognize that the central city areas are a vital key to their activities. While the presence of these ingredients may not ensure the complete viability of the anticipated efforts of any program, their absence will almost surely guarantee failure. How many of these factors have we seen in play locally? So BDF does not believe the question of how much money CPAC or any other community organization receives is at all as important as where is the plan. CPAC is perceived as a viable community-concerned organization. What is more important is the attitude as regards the urban renewal community development efforts, as where, since those efforts began in UR1 in 1950, and the millions of dollars that have been spent federally, locally, and citywide. Where is the plan? Where are the millions of dollars worth of accomplishments? More importantly, where is the commitment to change? When does the action begin? Where is the plan? When does the Partnership for Change begin to act? For a decent future, our children deserve it. And we hope this program will be a first step in stimulating all of our viewers to begin to demand action of your councilman, the mayor, and those public officials responsible for planning and developing change.